Hello, I'm your Buckleberry, and this is my little analysis of the 2023 Arctic sea ice minimum and blue ocean events and how these things are often misinterpreted. First thing I'm going to talk about is there's the extent of our September minimum. We always get our minimum in September because that's when sunlight stops coming in and we get darkness here at the North Pole, and the darkness spreads as time goes on. And with no incoming solar radiation, things cool off pretty quickly. And within a month, we've gone from that extent coverage to this extent coverage, which is kind of expected. And if we look at how things have grown in the past month, it's kind of, following the usual trend. It's dark and cold in the Arctic Ocean, and ice grows. It's just the way it works. And even after we have blue ocean events, it's going to continue growing winter ice. It's just a thing. When you've got no heat coming in from the sun, it's going to freeze. Of course, if we have extra residual heat from a warm summer, it might form later and later and later, and these things obviously will happen as time goes on. But I wanted to point out a few things. First of all, that our September extent was 4.37 million square kilometers. Something that I did was to take that number and do some division here with what we're talking about, our downward linear trend for September sea ice. Says the downward linear trend in Arctic sea ice over the 45-year satellite records is 78,500 square kilometers per year. So I did some math. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my handy-dandy calculator. We're going to divide that into our current September minimum. So I'm going to say 4,370,000. I'm going to divide that by our downward trend here of 78,500 per year. So at the current rate, we can expect our first September blue ocean event to happen in roughly 55 years, if this trend continues. Now, can we expect this trend to continue? I think we can expect this trend to get worse. I think that, it's going to probably be less than 55 years, but what it's not going to be is 2025. What it's not going to be is 2030, or probably even 2040. It's going to be decades until this happens, even if things really speed up. But that's not really the point. The point is, go ahead and get rid of that calculator now that I've done the basic math. The point is that when we take a look at an annual minimum of Arctic sea ice, we could say hypothetically, this is pretty bad. It's already pretty bad. We're already feeling the effects of diminished Arctic sea ice. We're already having wavy jet streams, which is kind of the main thing right now of the effects of the shrunken Arctic sea ice. Since we're already feeling the effects, I'm going through a thought experiment where, let's say, 50 years from now, we have, maybe a tiny bit hanging around here on the north coast of Greenland and the Canadian high Arctic. And so just the fact that we haven't technically had a blue ocean event at that point, because we still got a little bit hanging on here, is kind of irrelevant. Because long before that point, we'll be feeling the general effects of the blue ocean event. I mean, the same effects we've been feeling, but exacerbated, right? And so the idea of putting a date on a blue ocean event when we have a Arctic that is ice-free during its minimum, it's not the point, because the point is we'll be feeling those effects of warmer, open Arctic Ocean waters so long before that just the fact that there is still some ice left in September, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be really affecting things the way that it is affecting things right now, which are still not strong enough effects to keep a stable climate. So the point of this is that I keep hearing people predicting blue ocean events in the very near future. First of all, that's not going to happen. We still have millions of square miles of sea ice in, still a very low year. It's going to take a long time for this to go away. I say long time. It's not a long time in terms of, if we're talking geologic time, or long in terms of human time. it's long term compared to the worst of the doomers who are saying that, okay, blue ocean event 2025. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. And not only is that not going to happen, the blue ocean event is not really going to have the effect that you think it's going to have. Even if we were to say that, like, let's imagine a dividing line straight across this line of longitude here, where it's cut, slightly more than in half. And let's say this stays, icing up through the end of September and stays 1 year to the next, and this does not. We're still going to have so many of the effects of exacerbation, of loss of albedo, and especially, as I noted, the increasingly wavy jet stream. So just the fact that there's ice left doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's going to, as long as we have it, it's going to do some of a job, right? It's never going to do the job that it used to do. I'm not going to say never, but never as far as our current, civilization is concerned. For the thousands of years that we may expect humans to persist in whatever form, this is not going to be regrowing. We've hijacked our system to the extent that Milankovitch cycles are no longer going to do what they used to do. So to summarize that, just again, if somebody's forecasting an imminent blue ocean event, just don't worry about it. They don't really know the significance of it. Don't really know what they're talking about. It's going to take a while till we actually get to a summer blue ocean event. Now, a winter blue ocean event where we have no ice even in winter, that's going to be a completely different world. But again, anybody saying blue ocean event 2025 or 2030, they're just off the rails and just pay no mind. And second of all, that the fact that there is no ice left in a September minimum is not really the point. When we get to half of the current amount, we'll be feeling such effects from this that we probably aren't even going to be able to continue monitoring it with our satellites, in the sense that by the time we even get to half this amount, we can expect such changes in our human world as that, maybe the satellites are still up there measuring, but there's nobody manning the interpretation down on our end. So that's kind of it for that part of this. We can see in context that, okay, we've had worse years, we've had better years, but we're definitely well below where we want to be, which would even be higher than this, right? Because this represents our 1981 to 2010 median, which is not that great to begin with. I do personally own some maps that show sea ice extent as it was mapped out in like the 1950s and 60s, and it looks, a lot different than this. And it would be, we definitely want something closer to that, or even more. Something that I like. Well, first of all, let's say, hey, it's been regrowing since 2012. Let's focus on the longer term trend. Let's not practice bad science. We are definitely experiencing a long-term decline. I did appreciate the inclusion of this data as well. We can see that since our 2012 super low event, which was partially caused by some unprecedented storms in the Arctic, which we haven't really had since, but we also can't count them out. But since 2012, we've had very, very little of what we would call the old ice, 4+ years old. And similarly, it's been kind of flat if we were to draw a trend line since 2007, which was a big decline in both old and multi-year ice of between 1 and 4 years. 2007 was a big drop in that, and it's been kind of flat for both since. We also had a significant drop, looks like around 1988, 89. So there's a big step down, levels off, big step down, levels off. Ooh, maybe we're due for another big step down. Although, we really can't just overlay that kind of a trend onto this kind of thing. It's not a simple arithmetic type of thing. But, we can see that our multi-year ice has kind of stayed consistent. Our old ice is kind of staying consistent, and it's consistently not good. We can expect these things to continue decreasing. And again, as they continue decreasing, we'll continue feeling worse and worse climatic effects of that decrease long before a blue ocean event occurs. And when that blue ocean event occurs, we're talking, it's going to mean the difference between maybe the 5 years leading up to a blue ocean event, we have a very small extent right around here, and then maybe we don't. The difference between, that small extent and then having open water, it's really going to be minimal in the face of the loss of all the rest of this. So again, we're feeling it already. We're going to keep feeling it. It's going to keep getting worse. And focus on the bigger picture rather on the symbolic blue ocean event, which again, by the time it happens, is not really going to be that big of a deal. That's all for today.